Hello, my name is Emmanuel Olowale. I'm an author, an attorney, and podcaster. Going to be talking to my friend, my colleague, my sister, my twin.
Twin. I was waiting for you to say that. I was going to interrupt you if you didn't say that.
we
We
shared.
share the same birthday. Hey, see you
Yes.
early, and it's a pleasure to be here. Seriously, I started calling you brother because that's what I feel. You are my brother, but he's my twin brother. June 20th. Remember that date? Okay.
Yes. And we're going to be talking about a book, House Built by Faith. I've been reading this book and I know a story, and this is a well written book. But before we start talking about the book, can you tell them who is Case here early?
I'm a child of the one true King. If you ask me in court, out of court, if you ask me in church, out of church, it remains the same. So that's the starting point, right? And then after that, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, attorney, advocate. But the strong foundation truly is a child of God. And that has built a solid foundation that I can build upon because you know the stress of being an attorney, right? You know the demands. And I'm just excited to go into a different realm and join you as an author.
Thank you. And I'm looking at this. Yeah, I'm looking at this cover. This is a very beautiful cover. So, what inspired this cover?
Well, in actuality, I did not want to be on a cover because I know that people, they say don't judge a book by its cover, but people do. So I knew who's going to buy a book with my face and I'm not a celebrity. So I partnered with an illustrator who has worked on memoirs, New York Times best-selling books, and he had an opposite idea. So the title of my book is Houses Built by Faith: Jailhouse, God's House, Courthouse. So I told him I want a jailhouse, I want God's house, and I want a courthouse. I didn't want my face, and he said no. He said I want a picture of you. I want you looking directly to the camera. I don't want you to smile because I'm a bubbly person. And we went back and forth. And I'm like, no, this is my book. This is my project. I want three houses. That's it. Until he explained the meaning. So I said, you know what? Okay, I'm going to do the photo shoot. I'm going to take the photo. I'm going to submit it to you. I said, but I have the final say so. So I'm still pushing back from the expert who does this for a living. But then when he created the cover, it spoke to me because my life has been a life filled with struggles, and who smiles when they're struggling? But victory comes in the end. So that's, you're the first person I'm telling about the cover because again, that's something that I push back on. But when you hire an expert, let the expert do their job.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful cover, and people often say, "Don't judge a book by its cover." This one is a very good book with a great cover.
I like that. Thank you.
Yes, and you started off the book with some of your fondest memory growing up, and one of the things that resonated with me was like, you said the first time that your aunt laid eyes on you, she said something about this one is going to be tight with money.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
So apparently, I was born right after I was born. My mom and my aunt said that my fists were clenched tight. And from that moment on, she said I would be tight with money. And that could not be furthest from the truth because tight with money doesn't mean cheap. It means being resourceful with your money. It means multiplying your money. We know that the love of money is the root of all evil. But when you respect money, it will not only multiply, but you can invest it to grow. And that is so true. And so she did speak something prophetically.
Yeah. And even there is a quote from the beginning of the book. He said, I once was the stone that the builders refused,
Yes.
abandoned, arrested, charged, and sentenced. But in the master's hand, I was redeemed and became cornerstone of a house,
Yes.
whose foundation was proposed by God's perfect design,
Yes.
all for his glory.
I'm so glad you read that because very few people pick up on that. That was important to me because this set the foundation. Psalm 118, 22 is one of my favorite scriptures, but also Psalm 118:24. When I wake up in the morning, I say, I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continuously be in my mouth. But I also couple that with, this is the day that the Lord has made, for I shall rejoice and be glad in it. When I tell you seriously that my faith is my foundation, it's the truth. So this was the beginning of the book, because I did feel like rejected trash, to put it as boldly as possible. When you are incarcerated, you go through this process of stripping physically and mentally. They want to strip you physically to make sure you're not bringing any contraband, but that process that you go through psychologically makes you feel like trash. And I felt worthless. But God took what was worthless and made it into something that's priceless. And that's what He does. So, yeah.
Talking about that moment that you felt worthless, can you take me through that?
Well, it was first at the booking process, because I've never been in jail before, so I didn't know what to expect. You see things on TV, but it's way different from that. The first thing they do, like I said, you have to go through a strip search, right? So you're violated. You have no freedom. You have no rights. And then I was pregnant while I was incarcerated, so I was placed in solitary confinement. So now I don't have anyone to talk to. I am in a period of darkness, because solitary confinement is dark. Your windows are smaller. It is meant to punish you, but for me, it wasn't meant to punish me. I was pregnant. It was meant for my safety, away from general population. So I went from feeling sad to depressed to feeling worthless, and it just kept going down until the Spirit of the Lord met me in my jail cell.
Okay. Okay. The book is titled House Built by Faith. Jailhouse, God's House, Courthouse.
Yes.
What inspired you to write the book in the first place?
Well, I do a lot of speaking engagements, so I've been telling my testimony for years. I was never interested in buying a book, or writing a book, rather. And one last speaking engagement that I went on, it wasn't even a church, and I told my story. And this woman came up to me. She was a poet. And she said, 3 houses. And I'm saying, what are you talking about? She said, your life is in 3 houses. And then she said, you went to jail. That's the jailhouse. Then you said you got saved. That's God's house. And then now you're a lawyer in the courthouse. Man, a light bulb went off. I said, how are you telling me my story? Mind you, that was COVID. So that was back in 2020 when she came up and just said 3 houses, and then she had to break it down for me. I'm like, what are you talking about? But still, I did not want to write a book. Suddenly, so I started writing, but then I stopped. And the Spirit of the Lord said, finish your book. And I'm like, no, I have trial, I have this. I don't have time to do all that. Everyone knows my story. One day I just had to be obedient. And I opened my laptop and I just started typing. And I got the finished product. So it was a little bit of me being disobedient in the beginning, but then I finalized it.
Wow. So how long did it take you to write this book? Because it's a full-fledged book.
So because it's a memoir, I want it to be as accurate as possible. And when I talk about my childhood, I had to rely on my mother. I talk about when my father abandoned me at 8 years old. I just wanted it to be accurate because I knew my family would read it. So the first part of the book took longer because I had to coordinate myself with my family's schedule to make sure I got everything correctly. And then the last half of the book, coincidentally, talks about what I did 20 years later. So I had to find the judge who sentenced me to jail. I had to reach out to him, wait for a response, fly up to DC, take a picture. It's in the book, guys. So everything had to be accurate. And as a lawyer, you don't want to print any misinformation. So I had to make sure that everything was properly. So altogether, actually working on the book, researching, and actually writing the book, it took over a year because I didn't want to take time away from working on my cases. So what I did was I dedicated 2 hours at night to write my book. And I worked on it 6 days a week. And then there's the editing process. You got to send it to the editor. And then when the editor sends it back, I have to accept some changes, decline some changes because I still want to keep my voice. So this was a very long process, as you already know.
So if someone picked up this book What's the main message
Keep
that
the
you're
faith.
trying to pass across?
Keep the faith. Because in life, you're either coming into a trial or tribulation, or you're in a trial or tribulation, or you're coming out just to go back into another one. That's the cycle of life. So, what do you do once you're caught in a valley period? Do you quit? Do you give up? No, you have to keep the faith. You have to go. And sometimes you have to go even if you don't see an ending. I always tell people fear will paralyze you, but faith will propel you
Mm,
to a higher destination. And
mm,
these are not just words, it's the truth, but you have
mm,
to activate it.
mm.
So I don't just tell people, keep the faith. No, I tell you what faith is. Chapter 11 mirrors Hebrews chapter 11. Hebrews chapter 11 is a faith book, right? So I break down the definition of faith, how to activate faith. And then when you get to the back of the book, it actually is written like a workbook, because I just don't want people reading and say, hey, Casey, that was a nice book. No, there's a blueprint. So now that you know what faith is, now that you know how to activate it, you have to write your vision and make
Mm.
it plain. Utilize this book. There's a checklist in this book as well. So the goal is to motivate yourself to do better, because when you do something different by faith, you have different results.
Mm. And how old were you when you found yourself in the jailhouse?
20 years old.
Yeah.
So I that was almost 24 years ago. I was, you know, just coming out of my teens, high school senior, and I was sentenced to a period of incarceration. Um, Basically, after walking across the stage, I had to turn in my cap and gown for a jailhouse jumpsuit, like
Wow.
within a few days.
You're talking about walking the stage. The book started with you hearing a voice saying, "Speak, Cassia."
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that moment.
So I started the book off. I wrote it like a movie, so to speak. So the prologue basically starts when I was in the courthouse, when the judge was pronouncing sentence, and when he sentenced me to a period of incarceration. That was a surprise to me, because before walking in, my attorney told me, who was a court appointed attorney, oh, you have nothing to worry about. You're just going to get probation. Okay, I was fine with that because I had already admitted to everything. But when he sentenced me, the bailiff is already putting the handcuffs around me, and I'm trying to talk to my attorney like, yo, what's going on? I'm about to graduate. I'm going to miss my graduation. You're not telling
Mm.
the judge anything. And then I heard a voice, and it said, speak, Casey. And I'm saying to myself, well, who's saying that? I'm looking around. I'm trying to get his attention, be respectful to the court. Who's telling me to speak? And not only who's telling me to speak, what do I say? I am in handcuffs. The judge just said I have to go to jail. And I just blurted it out. I don't know what I said at that moment exactly, but what I know I said in general was, Your Honor, I'm graduating in a few days.
Mm.
My mother at the time was driving up from Florida.
Mm.
I'm in Washington, D.C. I said, I need to walk across that stage. I promise if you let me do that, I will turn myself in afterwards. And he actually did something he'd never done before. And he told me that. He allowed the bailiff to take the cuffs off.
Mm.
And then that's where the prologue stops. And then I start back at my first house, which is the womb.
Mm.
And then eventually I get back to pick up back at the courthouse in the middle of the book. So it's
Wow.
I wrote it like a movie because I wanted people to not only be entertained,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted them to be inspired, encouraged, and also just know that, wow, if Casey can go through all of this and still fulfill her destiny, so can I.
What was that moment you realized that you wanted to become a lawyer?
When I got out, at first I thought my dreams of becoming a lawyer was over. So I kind of put that on the back burner, and I said, well, if I can't be a lawyer, the next best thing is to be a paralegal
Mm-hmm.
and work at one of the prestigious law firms in DC, which I did. But then one day as a paralegal, I read in an article on the internet, and it said that this big time drug dealer became a lawyer. That stopped me in my tracks. I said, wait a minute. First of all I did was give away discounted shoes, charged with felony embezzlement, and he's pushing kilos of drugs, and he's a lawyer. So that article, I really believe, I know it was God, because that article came 6 years after my sentence. I was already a paralegal making a lot of money, by the way. When I saw that article, I said no. I took the LSAT. I applied to law school. The rest is history.
And talking about God's house, when did you realize you have this calling to share your testimonies with the people of God?
Now, you would think that the subtitle is Jailhouse, God's House, Courthouse. You would think that I start talking about God's house when I go to church after jail. No, I start talking about God's house actually in the jailhouse, because that's where I first met God again as an adult. Because I was raised in a Christian home, right? But when I heard the voice of God, I was in my jail cell. This was 5 o'clock in the morning, because that's when breakfast is. Everything's on schedule. And I was getting out of my bed like I normally do. When your door buzzes, you have 15 seconds to get to your door. And as I'm getting out, my feet it felt like they were dead. I felt like I was paralyzed, and I fall over. And in the midst of me falling over, I'm like, okay, if I fall on my knees, that's going to hurt. But if I fall on my belly, I'm going to hurt my baby. So I fell on my knees. Now I'm crawling to the door, because who wants cold food? If you don't answer your door in 15 seconds, you have to wait until they make their rounds. They'll do one more knock, and then they won't bother you. You don't get food. They probably think you're fasting or you don't want it. And I wanted my food. So as I'm crawling to get my food, the Spirit of the Lord met me in my jail cell, and I just went into a trance. And I talk about this in the book, and I say that God put me on a crossroads, and I was standing at the top, but I could see myself walking down each path. The first path, because my plan was to move to New York. I minored in fashion merchandising. So I was once I got out of jail, I was gonna move to New York and become this fashion stylist. And he showed me walking the streets of New York with my head down and things not working out. The next path, I'm walking towards a courthouse and being sworn in as a lawyer. And then the vision goes away. So I thought I was hallucinating, and I forgot about my food. And I'm like, I don't know what I just saw, but if God is real, I'm going to do everything I need to do to be a lawyer. So that's why I started off as a paralegal, but my faith wavered. I never took the LSAT. And then year 6, I take the LSAT. Year 7, I get a high enough score. 8 is the number of completion. No, new beginning. 7 is number of completion.
Wow. And after you became a lawyer, about 2 years ago, you decided to run for judge.
That's right.
Although you didn't win that seat, but you didn't lose either.
Not at all.
Tell us about that experience and
That
what
was
you learned from it.
That was the best thing, and here's why. When you run for politics, you are introduced to a different audience. You're introduced to a different set of people with different interests, but they collectively can help you reach a higher goal. So, yes, I lost the race, but I won relationships. I won partnerships. And just like the word says, the race is not given to the swift, it's given to the one that will endure to the end. And so God allowed me to experience running a county-wide race, only to lose by 324 votes. But I gained experience. So if I put my name in again, I know how to do it, what ways to do it, how to raise money, what to do, what not to do. That was the best experience ever. So you never truly lose when you run for politics if you do it the right way.
You never do. And with this book, how did you feel the first time you held a copy, like a final product? What did it feel like?
It came together, everything from the cream colored book. I just wanted to produce something quality, because I see a lot of people out here, and no offense, everyone has a story, but when you do something, you do your best. Martin Luther King had a quote that if you're going to be a street sweeper, you be the best street sweeper. And I take that in my profession as a lawyer. And even with this book, I wanted quality no matter how long it took. And if my name is on it, I know that God is going to bless it because of my intentions behind it. So when I first saw it, cried happy tears.
Wow. And where can people get a copy?
So all over, every platform. First and foremost, my website, kciearly.com. And if you purchase through me directly, you'll get a signed autographed copy. But it's also available in Barnes & Noble, Amazon, all of the outlets. Just type in kciaearly.com. Houses built by faith, jailhouse, God's house, courthouse.
You know what? I couldn't get off without asking you about this.
That is my mugshot, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Yes, that is the face of a 20-year-old who was ashamed. Um, I felt like, you know what? That's it. There's nothing else to do after that. But God allowed me to be stripped of the shame. I want everyone to understand this. If any man be in Christ, he's a new creature. Old things, bad things are passed away, and behold, all things are new. So, yes, this was a phase of my mugshot of depression, but God has restored me, and I'm happy to share my story to encourage you all.
And this is the new face, the face of faith.
Amen. I'm going to use that as a tag.
Yes.
Just know I got it from him.
This is the new face.
The face of faith. I like
Yes,
that.
compared to the face of
Shame.
shame.
Oh,
Thank you. Do you have anything to?
I am filled. I am filled. Thank you, Holy Spirit. He took the face of shame and turned it into the face of faith.
With confidence.
Mm.
Looking sideways, not knowing what the future holds. Looking forward with confidence, with faith. If you have to get any book this year, I do recommend getting this book. And thank you for watching. And I hope you join us for the next episode of the Alafia edition. And again, I'm interviewing Kesia Early, author, speaker, attorney, politician, mother, wife, and international superstar.
That part. To God be the glory.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.